welcome to Sonia's Book Talk. It's the best of 2019 of Sonia's opinion. These are not the library's opinions, these are mine, disclaimer. But I love to do this book talk because I get to talk about these books that I loved this year. So it's so hard sometimes to wait to talk about a book. I read City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert back in the spring, and I wanted to talk about it so badly in the book talk, and was like, I'm gonna wait because I know this is gonna be one of my favorites of the year. And it is, it's still at the top of the list. This was so fun. It's a historical fiction. A girl goes to New York City in 1940, and she goes to work for her aunt in the theater company, and she starts sewing costumes, and she meets all these colorful characters in the theater. It was so charming, and also the dialogue was so snappy. There's funny situations. There's just like it's a sexy romp because there are some explicit sex scenes. So there's those adventures, and it's Vivian is the girl's name. She's talking from like when she's older, so she's kind of like talking about her youth back in the day. So I just loved it. My coworker Margaret also read it. She thought it was really good. So there is like at one point a scandal, but there's no really dire repercussions. She's just recounting her adventurous life, and it's just so good. I loved it so much. This was one of my favorites of the year, and you'll see it on the best list of 2019. I can't say enough about it, but I loved it. It was great. And I'm going to talk about another book that's set in New York City, but contemporary times. Fleishman is in Trouble by Taffy Brodesser-Akner, this is her debut novel, but I've read some essays that she's written, and also she writes for like the New York Times. She writes articles. So I've read her, but this is her first novel, and it was really good. It starts off with Toby, who is getting a divorce, and he's being bombarded with these, women reaching out to him on these dating apps, and so it's kind of funny. And this one is also sexy, and has some sexual adventures in here. But then there's also a mystery because what happened to his wife? She dumped the kids off, and then she's gone, and he does not know where she is. He can't get a hold of her for like days, and it's going into weeks, and it's like, what happened to her? So we get her side of the story eventually. Her name is Rachel. So it actually turns into kind of like a study of this marriage, and about social climbing, and about ambition, and about a woman's role, and women's, her role trying to take care of kids, but also have a career. And it says things about a woman in a man's world, and so there's a lot to this, and I really was impressed with this, as well as entertained. So I'm putting it on one of my best of 2019 books of the year. Check it out. So when I was getting ready for this today, I was realizing all 4 of my books that I want to talk about all take part in New York at one point, in New York City. I didn't plan that, I don't know. Lots of good stories come out from New York City. So this one I loved, The Secret Wife of Aaron Burr. Aaron Burr is the guy who shot Alexander Hamilton. I talked about his bio back like last year in one of my book talks. If you want to check it out, it's the one called On Trial book talk, and in the playlist, if you go to YouTube, you'll see it. It's like number 34. I loved his biography. I didn't even know about this. Like, he had like this an affair, basically, to a lady who started out. Well, let me tell you about her. This is all in her point of view. Her name is Mary, but she's from India, so she was named Mary when she was brought over here as a domestic servant / slave. She ends up in Aaron Burr's household working for his wife. So we don't know a lot about her young life at all. So this author, I should say her name, Susan Holloway Scott. I love your book, Susan Holloway Scott. So this author kind of imagined her, early years, and then brought her over, then she comes over to America, and she eventually ends up in the Burr household. And she then ends up having an affair with Burr, and I'm just a Burr fan, and so if I get to read about him, I'm so excited. So even if you don't know Aaron Burr, if you're not interested in, Burr and Hamilton, if you like historical fiction set in early America, you would still like this. If you like, historical fiction from a woman's point of view, it's a really good read. I just like reading the parts about Aaron Burr, and Alexander Hamilton does make an appearance a few times in here if you're a Hamilton fan. But I loved how this author portrayed Burr. The author portrayed him as a decent guy who was very private and but had good morals, and he was just, he was torn apart by the press and everything because he was in politics. So decide for yourself what you think of it, and I just loved it. And it was so interesting to find out about this woman that he eventually married after his wife died, and had children with her. So very fascinating, and you get the perspective of her. Very cool. So for my final book, this is a little longer one. I do my best. My favorite books of the year, I make a little longer video. Lara Vapnyar is the author of Divide Me by Zero, and I've been following her writing. I read a novel of hers in 2006, and I've followed her. She's had a few things out since then, but she's never gotten that big, and I'm disappointed that I'm not seeing this on any best of 2019 lists, because it's so good. Everyone, read this book. If you like mother-daughter story, immigrant tale, they come from Russia to America, New York City. Just the mother-daughter story itself is so moving. There's romance, there's a marriage, and there's romantic liaisons and an affair, and it's so good. It only came out in October of this year, so maybe more people will be reading it in the next few months to come, but I don't know why it's not just getting more hype, because I love this book. Love it. It stays from the point of view from Katya, is her name. You see some of her early life. You see, her coming over here, living in Russia and then coming over here. I don't want to give too much away. It's just, I love it. The ending was so great. It just moved me, and it tells you at the beginning that the mom dies. It tells you in the first sentence. So, but it's more about, when the mom was alive. It's not about her dying. It's about life, and it's about all those things, So, Divide Me by Zero. It has a math theme because the mom was a mathematician and taught math and wrote math textbooks. So there's a little life philosophy mixed with math and all of that goes into this. That's just so touching. So I recommend it, and I recommend all these. These are the books I love this year, and I can't wait to see what books are going to come out next year that I'll love. So join me next time, and I hope you find some great books to read next year. Thank you. Bye.
If you enjoyed this video, please like the video and subscribe to the Stickney-Forest View Public Library's YouTube channel. Also, like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Stickney-Forest View Public Library District, where great things happen.